oral questions, questions orales, the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The Liberals like to blame what's happening on the global scale for the cost of gas, but it's an illusion. Over 10 years ago, under the Harper years, there were 2 wars in the Middle East and a war in Ukraine. And the oil was at $100 a barrel. And at the pump, $1.35. 60 cents less than today. The difference has to do with Liberal taxes and the weak dollar under this Liberal Prime Minister. Will they stop blaming global circumstances and agree that it's Liberal circumstances causing this? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, I'm convinced the Leader of the Opposition realizes that there is a global energy crisis. We know Canadians prioritize affordability, the cost of housing, food, gas. And good news, Mr. Speaker, that is precisely why we've acted. Mr. Speaker, we've suspended the federal excise tax on gas, on fuel, that is reducing the cost by 10 cents at the pump, the cost of gas. Mr. Speaker, on this side, we know affordability is the #1 issue for Canadians, and that's why with all of my colleagues, we will always be here to help Canadians.
The Opposition.
Une autre illusion.
Another illusion. He's trying to blame the cost of housing on the war in Iran. Mr. Speaker, the houses are here, the land is here, the workers are here, the supply is here. This is where the costs have increased. And speaking of the energy crisis, there was one in 2014 in the Harper years, and the global oil costs were higher than today. The cost at the pump was 50 cents less a litre than it is today. Will they finally do away with these Liberal taxes for the entire year so Canadians can fill up at the pump? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, the Director General of the Energy Agency said that we were currently in the worst energy crisis. And that's why we've taken action, Mr. Speaker. We've suspended the excise tax because we are fully aware of the fact that we need to help Canadians at this point. Specifically, as summer approaches, we will always be here to defend the interests of Canadians. And I would urge my colleagues, the Conservative College, to vote for Bill C-30 that will support Canadians through the summer.
Leader of the Opposition.
After 10 years of this Liberal government and this Liberal minister, Canadians spend more on taxes than on food, clothing and shelter combined. They're taxed when they work. They're taxed to fill up their car, to drive to and from work. When they get home and they want to have a beer to take the edge off all the tax, well, they pay higher Liberal taxes on that too. And we found out late last week that if they turn on their Netflix and stream their favorite program, this Liberal government wants to triple the Netflix tax to charge them even more for that. Mr. Speaker, Canadians are already taxed to death. Why won't they follow our lead and get rid of the Netflix tax so Canadians can stream affordably?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we will take no lesson from these Conservatives. You can take my word for that, Mr. Speaker. At every step of the way, when we put measure around affordability, they voted against, Mr. Speaker. They should be ashamed. At a time where Canadians are asking us to act on cost of living, Mr. Speaker, that's what exactly we've done, Mr. Speaker. We're building more affordable houses. We have taken measures on affordability for food prices, Mr. Speaker, and we have suspended the excise fuel tax on gas, Mr. Speaker. On this side of the House, we know when to act for Canadians. We will continue to support Canadians, and I invite my colleagues on the other side to vote for CEDAR.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
More tax, more costs, more chaos, more of the same. This Prime Minister is just another Liberal. Take, for example, the threat to property rights of British Columbians. This Liberal government instructed its lawyers not to defend the property rights of British Columbians in the Cowichan case. In fact, they're forbidden to this day, based on Guideline 14, which is still on the government's website, from putting property rights first. That case is coming up for appeal. People who paid for their homes and paid down their mortgages are worried about losing their most treasured asset. Will they reverse themselves, vote for the Conservative motion, and defend property rights in court?
The Honourable Minister for Crown Indigenous Relations.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At trial, Canada defended the validity of fee simple title granted by the Crown, and we will continue to do so on appeal. That's why, as far back as 2017, Canada argued before the court that private landowners should be notified of the litigation. This is why we supported Montrose's application to present evidence that was not before the court during the trial, which is occurring today. We will continue to pursue this matter where it belongs, in the courts, not on the floor of the House of Commons.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
They're bragging that back in 2017, they agreed that they would inform British Columbia homeowners that they might lose their property. Mr. Speaker, British Columbians don't want to be informed they're losing their homes. They want to be informed that their government is fighting to defend their property. She says they'll debate it in the courts. They're not debating in the courts. They have a guideline. The Prime Minister has a guideline on the government's website banning federal lawyers from arguing that private property comes before every other claim. Will the Liberals vote for our motion, reverse those instructions, and defend property rights in court?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, as the honourable member knows, the federal government has appealed the decision of the Superior Courts because we believe it was incorrect. In addition to making that appeal, we have been advocating for the court to notify private property owners since 2017. In addition, Mr. Speaker, we are supporting the application of Montrose, a private property owner in the area, to ensure that the arguments that they are making will be heard by the court in full. We believe in private property rights. We believe in reconciliation. We can manage this issue appropriately by continuing forward with the appeal. I look forward to having the opportunity to make that case.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, that is exactly the problem. There will be an appeal, and we want to ensure that federal lawyers are this time able to make the arguments that the Liberal government banned them from making last time, which is that when somebody has fee simple homeownership property or a small business owns a patch of land, that there is no other claim that can supersede that one. Mr. Speaker, these are seniors who made down payments and worked for 30 years of their lives paying property taxes that toss and turn at night because they don't know if they own their homes. Will the government reverse its disastrous direction, reverse its Liberal instruction, vote for our motion, and protect property?
The Honourable Minister for Crown Indigenous Relations.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our government will always raise legally viable arguments in court. That's what the law demands and what Canadians deserve. Litigation Guideline number 14 does not preclude Canada from relying on any specific defences, but requires a principled basis and evidence to support the defence. Regardless of the directive, the government would never make arguments that don't have a principled basis and evidence to support them. Canada has appealed the Cowichan Court ruling, and all viable defences remain on the table.
Honourable Député.
The Honourable Member for Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, Ottawa is currently reviewing the question the Alberta government will ask its citizens in a referendum to see if it's appropriate, because Ottawa knows so much better than anyone else what kind of question should be asked. Ottawa apparently knows what's clear and unclear to the common people. The federal government is so superior, so much better. Thank goodness it's there to look out for us, to explain to us what we're clearly able to understand. Do they realize that their Clarity Act is nothing but contempt for people and the provinces? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, what the government knows full well is that now, more so than ever, the time has come to work together to counter the tariff threat from the United States, an increasingly complex world, and that is precisely what this government is doing with the government of Alberta. We are working with Albertans. We are working with all the provinces throughout the country, specifically to show that the Federation works and that we share the concerns of Canadians. It's unfortunate the Bloc just isn't showing up. The Honourable Member for Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, contempt is the feeling by which one considers a person, a group, or a thing to be inferior, a feeling of superiority. When a provincial government or the Quebec government asks a question of its people, it's up to that provincial government or the Quebec government to determine the question, and it's up to the people to answer. Ottawa has no business getting involved. Ottawa is interfering simply because it believes itself to be superior to everyone else. So there are two options. Either the government will respect the democratic process underway, or it will meddle and confirm that it despises the people. What is it going to do?
L'honorable ministre.
The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, I did say what we intend to do. We will work with our friends within the Federation, with the government of Quebec, with the government of Alberta, with all other provinces and territories in order to address the concerns that Canadians are worried about throughout this entire country. We are focused squarely on economic issues. I was discussing these matters with the Minister of Industry and Trade. And this, of all the provinces, the Minister took part in these discussions to see how we could counter the threat of American tariffs. That is the work that we're doing together. The Honourable Member for Rivière-du-Nord. Mr. Speaker, not only does the Clarity Act give the government a sort of veto over the wording of the question, as if people were too thick to understand a question, but on top of that, this anti-democratic law calls into question the principle of majority rule in a democracy. Do the Liberals want clarity? Fine, let's be clear. It's up to the government initiating a referendum to determine the question. That government alone, and 50% plus one is a clear majority. Will Ottawa understand these simple principles and repeal its anti-democratic Clarity Act? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, perhaps that my colleague was not well focused on the questions, the answers that I provided earlier to his colleague. The federal government is absolutely focused on the issues that Quebecers and Canadians are concerned about. We are showing up. We are working with our friends in the provincial governments to counter the tariff threat, to support specific industries that are affected by these tariffs. That's what we are doing. That's the work we're doing. Too bad the Bloc isn't showing up.
Calgary East.
This Prime Minister is just another costly Liberal with nothing to show for his waste. More costs, more debt, more taxes, more on the national credit card, more of the same. The Liberals' $1 trillion of debt means less growth, less jobs, and less opportunities for Canadians. 18,000 jobs were just lost. Unemployment rose to 6.9%, and 111,000 full-time jobs are gone under this Liberal government in just the last 4 months. How many more jobs will Canadians have to lose before this Liberal government stops its costly credit card budgeting?
That's right. The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
Mr. Speaker, I am so excited to get up and stand and talk about Bill C-30, the Spring Economic Update that invests $6 billion into working people, into skilled trades workers, into unions, Mr. Speaker, into great paying jobs, building up the workforce of today and the future. Mr. Speaker, it's clear that these guys have no idea what working class people are calling for. They're calling for investments in their communities, investments in their families, and investments in their future. That's what we're doing.
The Honourable Member for Calgary East.
Sending more students through trade school without creating any jobs are creating certificates for unemployment. And if they really want to invest in Canadians, the Liberal government can do one thing: just get out of the way. Let our natural resources get produced so we can create more jobs, create more boots on the ground, get shovels in the ground, and more projects built. That's what's going to help our youth, not more blocking of our resource projects. When will this Liberal government get out of the way, remove their anti-development laws, so youth actually have a future in this country again?
Honourable Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, maybe if that member went to Northern Ontario and talked to the mining sector and really listened to what big employers and small businesses are saying, they'd hear that exactly what we're doing is exactly what's needed. In fact, we've been applauded by employers, by unions, by trainers, by hard-working people who are saying we need an opportunity to take advantage of these jobs that are building Canada strong. Maybe he needs to get out of this place and go into the communities and talk to people about what they need to get these projects up the ground. Then actually he'd have something to say that would be worthwhile in here.
The Honourable Member for Oshawa.
Mr. Speaker, under this Prime Minister, we have the same old costly Liberals. More taxes, more debt, and more on the national credit card. And nothing to show for the waste. In April, gas prices exploded by 28.6 cents per litre The largest monthly increase on record, hammering Canadians every time they fill up and driving the cost of everything.
Shameful.
And now the Liberal finance minister has even signaled they think they've done enough. Does the Prime Minister actually believe Canadians can afford this level of Liberal inflation?
Yeah, good question. Good question.
The Honourable Government House Leader.
It is good news, actually. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the member from Oshawa. Unfortunately, when we put things before this House that actually provide relief for Canadians, she, at the absolute demand of her leader, stands up and votes against them. So she votes against childcare, she votes against reduction in fuel taxes, she votes against dental care, she votes against training and opportunities for young people. When will that member convince her leader to stop voting against help for Canadians?
The Honourable Member for Oshawa.
Mr. Speaker, once again, Canadians aren't asking for excuses or these so-called half measures that they mention. They deserve relief. Every time my neighbors in Oshawa fill up their tank, buy groceries, or pay rent, they feel the impact of Liberal inflation. Conservatives have a real plan: to put money back into Canadians' pockets by removing all federal fuel taxes for all the year, to bring the cost down immediately at the pump and across the entire economy. Will the Prime Minister finally adopt this common sense plan and give Canadians a break?
Yeah, well said.
The Honourable Secretary of State for Seniors.
Mr. Speaker, we hear no common sense from the other side, and perhaps that's because they don't speak to Canadians. Over here, we are hearing from Canadians regularly, and they know that Canada faces a profound global economic uncertainty right now. And that's why we're responding with responsible measures, like protecting seniors from fraud, making the social programs that they rely on efficient and resilient to global shocks. For example, the Groceries and Essentials tax benefit will give single seniors almost $950 back in their pockets. This is what it means to be fiscally responsible managers investing in the public.
The Honourable Member for Hamilton East Stony Creek.
More costs, more taxes, more debt, more on the national credit card, more of the same. This Prime Minister is just another costly Liberal with nothing to show for his waste. Gas prices surged 28.6% in April. Grocery prices are up 3.8% in April. Energy prices rose 19.2%. My community is being squeezed and they cannot pay more. Conservatives have a real plan to give Canadians relief from Liberal inflation by removing all federal fuel taxes for the year. On what day will they adopt it?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Sport.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Perhaps the member from Hamilton East Stony Creek should talk to the 10,600 plus people in his riding who have accessed dental care that he and his party voted against. Perhaps he should talk to the over 20,700 families that access the Canada Child Benefit and the benefits that this government has put on the table to fight for their affordability that he and his party consistently votes against. Mr. Speaker, whether it's childcare, whether it's a national school food program, whether it's improvements in recreation facilities, the Conservatives have voted against every single measure to improve the lives of Canadians, including those in Hamilton East Stony Creek.
The Honourable Member for Lethbridge.
Last week, the CRTC announced that it will be tripling the online streaming tax from 5% to 15%. And this tax will now drive up the cost that consumers pay for things like Netflix or Disney+. And just this weekend, Spotify announced that already it will take effect coming in July. They will be increasing their prices. For over 800 years, it has been parliamentary tradition that only Parliament imposes a tax. Only Parliament. Regulators like the CRTC do not have the authority to do that. So will this government speak to the CRTC and make it reverse course?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the member opposite. Let me be very clear. This is not a new tax. This is an imaginary tax, once again brought up in the House. Our government is relentlessly focused on the cost of living for Canadians. That's why we cut taxes for 22 million Canadians. This decision from the CRTC only ensures that existing rules are applied in a way that fosters fair competition. This is about protecting Canada's distinct culture and identity and ensuring the vitality of our cultural sector. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Lethbridge.
Mr. Speaker, a tax is a tax is a tax. You can call it whatever you want, but at the end of the day, Canadians pay more. That's a tax. And this tax will do much more than just cost Canadians. It will actually impact us in terms of our negotiations with regards to CUSMA. The Liberal government has already been accused of escalating this irritant, and they've already been signaled by the U.S. that this will in fact hinder us in terms of getting a deal that the Prime Minister promised to get for us months ago and has failed to deliver. So will this Liberal government cancel this costly tax, protect our trade relationship with the United States, protect Canadian jobs, protect trade, and get it done?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and thank you again for the question. Again, what we are talking about here is imaginary taxes. Once again, the way that Canadians consume content over the last decade has changed entirely. People are streaming content. It's not only with broadcasters, and it's important that our regulatory regime reflect that change. Thank you very much.
The Honourable Member for Repentigny. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister's environmental betrayal is complete with the announcement of a new dirty oil pipeline as early as 2027, a pipeline that could contravene laws and endanger threatened species, a pipeline whose environmental impact will be assessed by the Energy Board in Calgary, an assessment. So the minister and they can change these assessments as they see fit. And this is a generational betrayal of the environment. Are there any Liberals who will refuse to be complicit in this? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, I'll paraphrase our Prime Minister who said, "We live in the world as it is, not as we wish it to be. But what matters to us is that we all work together, all provinces, all of Canada, to improve our competitivity economically, but also we want to reach our climate and environmental goals. We haven't given up on carbon neutral by 2050. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm working very hard on the nature strategy, a strategy that is unanimously supported throughout the country." The Honourable Member for Repentigny. Mr. Speaker, when it comes to environmental betrayal, the Prime Minister has gone even further than Stephen Harper. And we're not actually the ones saying it. It's the Liberal MP for Laurier-Sainte-Marie, and he's not the only Liberal to think this way. 15 or so Liberals have written to the Prime Minister to express their unease about this oil-forward shift, and about 15 Liberals have reminded him that climate change remains the greatest threat of our time. Well, if it is the greatest threat of our time, what are they waiting for to stand up, speak up, and cross over the opposition? The Honourable Minister for Government Transformation. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'm really proud, as my colleagues are, to be a part of a government that takes very seriously the protection of the environment and also the economy, which is fundamental to the future of our country. If you're talking about the environment and the fight against climate change, you have to think of the tax credit for clean energy. $90 billion. Régie Nature will protect 30% of our land. The regulations that will reduce our methane regulations by 2030. That's actual, real, concrete action for nature. The Honourable Member for Charlebourg, Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, after weeks of pressure from the Conservative Party, the Liberals seem to finally start to listen to reason by eliminating the excise tax on gasoline. But they continue with their so-called clean fuel standard, another disguised tax that already adds 7 cents per litre and could rise to 17 cents by 2030. Canadians need real relief now, not a half measure from the Liberals. Will the Prime Minister finally do away with the clean fuel standard to bring down the price at the pump? Yes or no? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, we will continue to fight for affordability. We have already reduced by 10 cents the gas tax. That has an effect on Canadians. We need to keep going with all measures, not just one. It's important. And in fact, people are going to be receiving checks shortly, if it's not already done, for the groceries and essentials benefit. That's what it means to help Canadians. You need to work on several fronts at the same time, and that's precisely what we're doing. Aside from working to develop our economy, aside from protecting nature. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The honourable member for Charlebourg-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, governments around the world are helping their people because, you know, it costs a lot to fill up. Everyone's discussing this everywhere. We know that summer's coming, and it costs a fortune to fill up the tank of gas. Australia, Spain, Ireland have lowered their prices at the pump. You got to think the GST is applied. It's applied to so many things and directly on another tax. What can be done to eliminate the GST on gasoline and diesel? Let's follow the lead of other countries. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. If he's talking about helping Canadians, well, maybe he could start by voting for measures that actually help Canadians on a daily basis. The groceries and essentials benefit will help 12 million Canadians who will be receiving their first check in early June. That's a measure they're against. What about the dental care program? That helps at least 25,000 people in his riding in Charlebourg-Saint-Charles. That's a measure they're against again as well. How about a drop in taxes for 22 million Canadians? That's the first thing we did. Maybe they should walk the talk and support this government.
L'honorable député de Richemont-Arthabasca.
Merci, monsieur. The honourable member for Richemont-Arthabasca. Mr. Speaker, the Liberals mean higher costs, higher taxes, higher spending, and more job losses. The Liberal Minister of Finance thinks they've done enough damage. Yeah. How can anyone govern like this? Look at the Liberals' new space launch platform. Just follow me here. A company leases land from the provincial government for $13,500 a year. And that company leases it to the Liberal government for $20 million a year, 10 years, $200 million on a children's credit card. My question's simple. If it were your money, would you do this deal?
Encore une fois.
Again, you have to go through the Speaker, the Honourable Minister for National Defence. Mr. Speaker, the space launch capacity, a sovereign capacity, would generate millions of dollars, create well-remunerated jobs, reinforce our sovereignty, reduce our dependency on the U.S., and support a commercial trade sector for launches in the space sector, which could represent up to $40 million. That is what we're investing in, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Richmond-Arthabasca. Well, Mr. Speaker, this makes absolutely no sense. I'm talking about mismanagement of housing costs under this Liberal government. We know that young people now are having more trouble finding a job than they have for 50 years. They are struggling to find a job, to find a home, to put food on the table. They can no longer dream of buying a home or starting a family. Will the Prime Minister apologize for what he said to our youth? And will he stop piling debt onto the shoulders of our youth? The Honourable Minister of Government Transformation. Mr. Speaker, this is a government that is supporting the next generation with $6 billion for the trades, which is such an important area to invest in. This is a government that believes in youth, believes in the future, and that is launching a number of major projects. For example, recently, the Prime Minister was in Saint-Michel-des-Saints to announce the biggest graphite mine in the G7. It is major projects like this that will support the next generation. The Honourable Member for Côte-du-Sud, Rivière-du-Loup, Kataskomik-Témiscouata. Mr. Speaker, I would challenge the Liberal Prime Minister to have the gall to tell a young person in Quebec that the economy is doing well right now. How does he justify the fact that in Quebec, 91,000 jobs have been lost since the beginning of the year, 43,000 in April? While the Prime Minister continues to pile debt onto the next generation, our young people are struggling. It's unbelievable. When will this Liberal government finally stop with its costly budgets? When will it finally give some hope to the next generation? The Honourable Minister of Industry. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, you know how we give options to the next generation? It's by creating jobs and by investing. And indeed, we would like to just underscore that we are now having the biggest commercial aviation order in the history of Canada with the Airbus planes in Mirabel. This is great news. Recently, with the Quebec government, we announced funding for 350 new jobs in Trois-Rivières. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Terrebonne. Mr. Speaker, last week the Prime Minister officially launched the Mattawinnie mine in Saint-Michel-des-Saints in the Lanaudière region in Quebec. And this is just 6 months after the project was submitted to the Major Projects Office. This mine will become the biggest graphite mine in North America and in the G7. Can the Quebec Lieutenant and Minister of Government Transformation, Public Services and Procurement tell this House how this project will support our supply chain and our critical minerals supply chain and make our economy stronger, more independent, and more resilient? The Honourable Minister. I'd like to thank the member for Terrebonne, and it's such a pleasure to see her in this House. The launch of the Mattawinnie mine in Saint-Michel-des-Saints will help us reach energy independence. It will increase our production eightfold. It will meet demand and improve our relationships with our allies. We have signed 56 critical minerals agreements with our allies. I'm very proud of this project, which will inject $2 billion into our economy and create hundreds of jobs. Thank you.
Member for Haliburton, Kawartha Lakes.
Speaker, immediately following question period, the House will vote on our Conservative motion to protect homeowners from a failed Liberal approach that is putting British Columbians' homes and futures at risk. Our motion would prioritize private property rights in the Cowichan case, require explicit private property rights protections in future agreements with First Nations, and force the government to establish a plan to protect affected Canadians. So, will this government support our common sense motion, yes or no?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Artificial Intelligence and Digital Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, yet again, it's either misinformation or disinformation coming from these Conservatives. Either way, what Canadians need to understand are the facts. The facts are that this government is appealing the Cowichan decision in the courts today. This government has stood up for private property rights owners, and what's also important, Mr. Speaker, is that Canadians understand that not a single Canadian has ever lost any private property with any agreement with an Indigenous community. They are spreading misinformation. They are risking substantial economic growth in British Columbia, and they're putting at risk reconciliation and true reconciliation and economic growth.
The Honourable Member for Haliburton, Kawartha Lakes.
Speaker, the only people putting reconciliation at risk is that Liberal government and that member from British Columbia who should know better. The amount of uncertainty created in British Columbia, not just the city of Richmond, is the result of that Liberal government failing to stand up for private property rights. They appealed at the last minute. They put so much uncertainty up in the air. The only organization appealing for private property rights is the city of Richmond. The government has failed. It needs to do better. So will it support our Conservative motion to fix the problem this government created?
The Honourable Minister of Veterans Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, our colleagues across the way have brought up this issue numerous times, and we've been very clear. We will stand with the private property rights in protecting those in British Columbia. That's right. This is about creating fear and uncertainty where it is unnecessary, and it's not helping us move forward as a country, as a province, and as community. We are focused on defending private property rights in Canada, period.
The Honourable Member for Mission-Matsqui, Abbotsford.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals are failing to defend Canada's system of private property rights and indefeasible title, while sowing confusion and fear among homeowners about whether their land is secure. With the Cowichan decision and the Musqueam agreement raising serious and valid concerns, British Columbians are wondering whether their private property rights will be defended at all, especially after this government constrained their arguments on extinguishment. So, will this Liberal government fix its litigation and negotiation policies and commit to protecting Canadians' property rights by supporting our Conservative motion today?
The Honourable Minister of Housing and Infrastructure.
Well, it's shameful to continue to hear members of the opposition fear-mongering about private property rights. We on this side of the House stand for private property rights. That's right. We stand for reconciliation. We have appealed the case alongside the BC government, the government of the City of Richmond, and other First Nations. And we will continue to be there for private property owners and work for reconciliation. The fear-mongering has to stop.
The honourable member for Cowichan, Malahat, Langford.
Families on Vancouver Island worked hard, played by the rules, bought their homes in good faith. They deserve certainty about their property and their futures. Yet under this Prime Minister's watch, the mishandling of the Cowichan case and the closed-door Musqueam agreement has shaken that certainty. Industry, businesses and homeowners are anxious. Communities are divided. Meaningful reconciliation has been set back by division. Leadership means bringing people together. This Prime Minister has failed that test. Will he finally show any leadership and support our Conservative motion to protect property rights, restore confidence, and unite rather than divide the people he's supposed to serve?
Here, here, here. The Honourable Secretary of State for International Development.
Mr. Speaker, the only party in this House that is bringing that fear is the Conservative Party of Canada. The only party in British Columbia that's doing that is the Conservative Party of British Columbia. And the only reason they're doing this is to instill fear. Everyone knows that your private property rights are not at risk. The government is defending them as we speak, and that is how we will always protect public-private property rights of all individuals in Canada. Thank you.
The honourable member for Richmond Centre, Marlpole.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals are in denial.
Hear, hear.
Canadians are demanding certainty, yet this Liberal government continues to leave homeowners, business, farmers and municipalities in limbo after the Cowichan decision. Conservatives have put forth a motion that will compel the government to replace Litigation Guideline 14, put private property first in the Cowichan case, secure free civil property protection in future agreements, and publish a plan to protect Canadians' land titles. Will this Liberal government finally stand with homeowners and move for our Conservative motion to protect private property rights in
The Honourable Secretary of State, the Honourable Secretary of State for Seniors.
Mr. Speaker, our government has said time and time again and has shown through action that we stand with the people of British Columbia, we stand with private title rights holders, and we stand with Indigenous people. We are taking the appropriate action and we are appealing the decision in the courts. It is frightening how the Conservatives are attempting to whip up disinformation and scare private property owners. They need to know this government has their backs.
The honourable member for Calgary Nose Hill.
On Thursday, the Minister of Immigration is supposed to show up for 4 hours to be held to account for her decisions during the Committee of the Whole. But she hasn't confirmed that she will attend or answer questions for the full 4 hours like her colleague, the Finance Minister, did. Now, I understand that she's scared to be held to account for the atrocious dumpster fire that she's presided over for the last year. But she has a job to do, and if she won't do it, the Prime Minister needs to finally fire her. So will she commit to answering questions for the full 4 hours on Thursday night, or will the Prime Minister finally fire her?
Great question. The Honourable Minister of Citizenship, Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship.
Mr. Speaker, that question is ridiculous coming from that member. I am here today, I am here every day this week, and I am here on Thursday. How ridiculous can you be? We have, in the last 12 months, have acted for Canadians. We have managed migration. The facts prove it. The asylum claims are down. Temporary resident population is down.
That's right.
New express entry systems to fast-track doctors, tradespeople, people we need in rural communities. Our Francophone immigration is proceeding at full blast. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Calgary Nose Hill.
I'm going going to take that as a no, I can't do my job, and I won't show up for work for 4 hours. I mean, I understand why she doesn't want to show up for 4 hours, right? In the last 2 weeks alone, there have been multiple cases of sweetheart deals for non-citizens convicted of serious crimes. Terrorists are still in Canada, and money is being poured into refugee hotels. So I'll ask again, will she show up for the full 4 hours on Thursday night and be held to account for her terrible decisions?
The Honourable Government House Leader. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Speaker, the minister just said she would be here for Committee of the Whole. The real question is, as the minister recites the list of accomplishments and improvements that are occurring in the immigration system on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis.
Couldn't hear the Honourable Government House Leader. Couldn't hear the government. That's not his fault. It's not my fault.
From the top.
Not from the top, but we'll give them, maybe a few extra seconds at the end. The Honourable Government House Leader.
The minister recites the formidable accomplishments that are being realized under her tenure. Immigration down, asylum seekers down. There are incredible accomplishments of this minister. The real question is, when will that member stop with the degrading and very condescending questioning that she continues to put without any foundation to this minister?
The Honourable Member for Calgary Nose Hill.
I don't know about you, but I think it's a little condescending that the minister gets up to answer the questions that were directed towards her. I'll say this. It is absolutely mind-boggling that the person in charge of one of the most critical files in government, who gets paid $300,000 and has a taxpayer-funded driver, can't even be bothered to show up for work for 4 hours to be held to account. She has not committed to the full 4 hours. She needs to look behind her, because all of her caucus openly wonder to the CBC why she still has her job. Will she stand up and say, yes, I will be there for 4 hours to answer our question?
The Honourable Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians expect transparency and honesty, not bullying and degrading from that member and people that she works with. I have said I am here today, I'm here Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I am here at the Committee of the Whole, and I look very much forward to answering all your questions, because Canadians know that this government is doing the job that the government has elected us to do. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Okanagan, Lake West, South Kelowna.
A Pearson ramp worker said, and I quote, "I walk out through the terminal doors, nobody checks you. We joke you could walk out carrying a cruise missile," end quote. That's from a W5 investigation exposing organized crime using travelers' baggage to traffic drugs through Pearson Airport, a scheme that's been happening for a very long time. Given the Transport Minister's silence on this brazen security failure, Canadians want to know, with the FIFA games set to start in weeks and over $1 billion committed to security, if the Liberals won't be taking this seriously now, why would Canadians believe they ever will with our security?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, the safety and security of Canadians is our top priority, Mr. Speaker. Canadian law enforcement work closely with airport authorities, airlines, border agencies, and international counterparts to detect criminal activity, protect travelers, and disrupt organized crime networks involved in drug trafficking, Mr. Speaker. At least 6 arrests related to luggage tag swapping have been made by the RCMP. We continue to invest in law enforcement, Mr. Speaker. $1.3 billion for border, 1,000 new CBSA and 1,000 new RCMP personnel. And through Bill C-12 and C-22, we are...
L'honorable député de...
The Honourable Member for Mont-Saint-Bruno-L'Acadie. Mr. Speaker, the Canadian aerospace sector supports thousands of skilled, well-paid jobs in my province, Quebec. At the beginning of the month, Airbus and AirAsia announced the biggest Canadian-designed and Canadian-built airplane order in the history of the country, which shows that our government's plan to diversify trade and strengthen our economic partnerships is working. Can the Minister of Industry tell the House about the measures our government is taking to attract investment and make Canada stronger? The Honourable Minister of Industry. Mr. Speaker, finally, a good question. A good question from my colleague for Mont-Saint-Bruno-L'Acadie. Indeed, 2 weeks ago, we got great news for the aerospace sector and especially for Airbus in Mirabel with the 150 new planes. These planes are now being built in Mirabel. They were ordered by AirAsia, as well as we see here that there's both an Asian company involved and a European company. So we are attracting foreign direct investment.
South Six Nations.
Mr. Speaker, with these Liberals, it is more crime, more fear, more chaos, simply more of the same. Extortion is raging across this country and victims are living in a state of perpetual terror. Homes burned, businesses shot at, communities under attack. Yet this Liberal Prime Minister wants Canadians to believe that they're tough on crime when Bill C-16 would actually make our justice system weaker. When will this Liberal government repeal its failed soft on crime laws and finally make criminals who do the crime do their time?
That's right.
Hear, hear. The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, I want to acknowledge the excellent work of Peel Regional Police in collaboration with the OPP, CBSA, FinTrack, and the FBI, who announced the arrest of 17 individuals connected to an international criminal network. This network is responsible for violent extortion targeting of South Asian community across Canada. This operation dismantled a campaign involving 24 incidents, resulting in 106 charges, Mr. Speaker. Extortion and intimidation will never be tolerated in Canada. That's why Peel Police and others have asked for Bill C-22 on lawful access to be passed by this House.
The Honourable Member for Abbotsford South Langley.
Mr. Speaker, after 11 years of Liberal softer crime policies, Canadians are seeing more crime and chaos on our streets. Since 2015, violent crimes have risen by 55% nationally, while extortion has surged by 330%. In Surrey alone, extortion is up by 2,400%. Liberal catch and release policies like C-5 and C-75 have led to Canadians being more vulnerable and less safe. When will this government repeal its failed soft on crime laws, restore mandatory minimums, and make sure that criminals serve the time that they deserve?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Combating Crime.
Hear, hear.
Mr. Speaker, our plan is working, and that is what the Peel Regional Police's investigation results show. They've arrested over 17 individuals. Excellent. Unfortunately, the investigation took 8 months. You know what could have sped up that investigation? And we could have caught those criminals from within a month or less. Lawful access, except the Conservatives have been stalling the bill ever since we introduced it last year, Mr. Speaker. It is what law enforcement is asking for, and we could mitigate more victims that have occurred because of the Conservative stalling.
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Member for Oxford.
Mr. Speaker, under the Liberals, criminals shoot by day and walk free by night. The Liberal criminal justice system is catch, release, arrest, repeat, while extortionists terrorize communities and the families. Our Conservative plan would impose a mandatory 10-year sentence to lock these criminals up. We would kick out non-citizens convicted of these serious crimes. So will the Liberals finally stand with victims, support our plan, and bring back safe streets?
The Honourable Secretary of State.
Mr. Speaker, like I said, our plan is working. We're strengthening our laws. We're catching criminals, and that is shown by the results that we're seeing across the country right now, Mr. Speaker. We've embedded FinTrack into our law enforcement agencies, and we're also using CBSA to remove people that are removable. This plan is working, and extortions are coming down, and criminals are being put behind bars.
Hear, hear. Member for Davenport.
Mr. Speaker, conflicts around the world are intensifying, and Canadians are feeling their impact here at home. Meeting this moment means delivering on our our security commitments and reinforcing the alliances that keep us safe. The Minister of Foreign Affairs recently came back from the NATO Foreign Ministers meeting in Sweden. Can the Minister please share with this House how Canada is working with our allies to turn our commitments into real capability?
Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, last week I met with my NATO counterparts in Sweden following its historic accession to the NATO alliance, the first of which Canada was the ratifier. As global conflicts disrupt our supply chains, Canada is investing in our defense industry to meet 2% of GDP, reaffirming the support for Ukraine and condemning ongoing aggression and attacks against Ukraine, and securing the confidence of our allies in establishing the Defense Resilience and Security Bank. Mr. Speaker, we are contributing to NATO's strength by building Canada strong. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for North Island, Powell River.
Canadians are outraged to learn, Mr. Speaker, that taxpayer dollars went to deceive and lie to individual Canadians, including RCMP veterans. A CBC production used fake websites, fake names, and fake companies to lure them into supposed interviews about their lives after retirement. But it was all just a front, a setup for some sort of twisted humiliation ritual in front of a live studio audience. This is insane. Does the minister really think that it is acceptable for the state broadcaster to use taxpayer money to lie, deceive, and smear the reputations of individual Canadians?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Canadian Identity and Culture.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the member opposite for the question. The CBC is an independent Crown corporation, and commenting on specific programming would be inappropriate, and I'm sure the member opposite would agree. To be clear, with regard to this show, production has been paused, and the show has never aired. However, I think it's right that every citizen of Canada has the right to have an opinion on CBC, as it is a public broadcaster, so you can direct your comments directly to the CBC. Thank you very much.
I don't have any comments for the CBC at the moment. The Honourable the Honourable Member for Vancouver East.
The Prime Minister told Canadians we don't want to hear from people what they are against. What we want to hear what they're for. He has abandoned the environment. He's gaslighting environmental groups who have been calling for renewable energy for decades. No wonder the former Environment Minister resigned, and Liberal MPs feel that they can only raise their concerns anonymously. This is an authoritarian approach, not democracy. Will the Prime Minister stop bullying, his bullying tactics, the sidelining of Indigenous leaders who dare to disagree with him, or do they need to do what Daniel Smith is doing, threaten to hold a referendum to separate from Canada?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Environment and Climate.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And we can't build Canada strong and together and clean if we're not working together. That's why we're thinking differently, strategically, to deliver real results for Canadians. We've actually introduced new methane regulations and $90 billion in clean investment tax credits. We brought Alberta to the table for the first time, making sure that we move together for the future. And I was so proud to be in Klemtu this weekend, where we worked with 6 nations, the province of British Columbia, to protect 6,500 square kilometers of marine conservation for future generations. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
And that concludes question period for today.
Ça me fait la période des questions.
That ends question period for today.